You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Welcome to another episode of Business Wealth Impact. Today we have a wonderful guest, Peter Teuscher, who is a seasoned business and life coach whose book, Rethinking Happiness, delves into the complexities of happiness and offers a refreshing perspective on how individuals can achieve it on their own terms. His approach aligns with the goals to go beyond superficial checklists and embrace deeper, more meaningful changes that foster genuine mental health and well-being. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, John. It's great to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
You too. Now, happiness is a big subject I love because I truly feel that every human being, we are hardwired to seek happiness. And I feel like a lot of people miss that and they're going after the wrong thing. So I really want to get you on the show to hear about your perspective. So what's your perspective and what are we rethinking about happiness?
Well, I usually encourage people to, first of all, define what happiness means to me, because not everyone calls it happiness. Some people will call it fulfillment, some people satisfaction or joy. I think all of those things bundle up to mean happiness or to refer to what I'm calling happiness. And I think what people maybe need to rethink is how they get there. And also, when you're defining what it means to you, recognize that it's not this destination. A lot of people look at happiness as these kind of peak moments in their life, or, when I reach this milestone, then I'll be happy. But there's so much happiness that you can find in day-to-day moments. And I think when you look at happiness from that perspective and recognize that if you're treating life like it's these peak moments and everything in between is just filler, you're missing out on so much. And so that's really what I'm encouraging people to do and become more aware of.
That is so good. You said like it's filler. That
Mm.
says it all. That I think we've all done that. We're filling in and life is passing and those filler could be happy moments, joyful moments, doing everything with joy. So part of your rethinking is to not put off happiness to when I have the relationship of my life or when I have enough money to travel. Because I happen to know some people go traveling and they're miserable while they're traveling because they're just miserable. So you've written a book on it. So clearly you feel like there's something new in what you're saying, or you wouldn't have written a book, correct?
Yeah, I think when I have people come to me for coaching and they say, look, I've gotten a degree, I've gotten a career, maybe they've got a relationship, even a family, and they're still not happy and they don't understand why, it makes me feel like people are missing the core message or a core understanding of what happiness is. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I have my own definition of happiness. For me, it's not that place you get to, but it's happiness is this feedback that tells us, the way we are living our lives is on track. Either it's the actions we're taking, the choices we're making, or the perspective from which we're seeing life. Because sometimes you've got it all around you. You're just overlooking it because you're so obsessed with something that
Mm.
that's not contributing to your happiness. So it's either the perspective or it's the kind of way the actions you're taking and your choices that leads to your emotional guidance system, so to speak, telling you in the form of happiness or lack thereof, if you're on track or not.
Mm. So, well, it's like stop and smell the roses, right? This has been an adage for ages. So, for you, it's if things are flowing, you're happy. Like if there's no friction, if it's in flow and things are just moving along, you're happy with that, right?
Absolutely. And
Right.
I'm glad you mentioned the word flow, because you look at Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the guy who wrote and used or popularized the term flow. And
Mm-hmm.
when he talks about people reaching their peak performance or being really productive,
Mm-hmm.
there's an element of, well, what you're doing needs to be challenging for you, but you need to find enjoyment in it. You need to be
Mm-hmm.
happy while you're doing it.
Mm.
And that those two ingredients are what get you to that flow state. And
Mm.
so that's why I refer to his work as well, because he says happiness is a real important factor in whatever you do to make it engaging for you.
I completely agree. And that's why people they seem to be happy, content when things are working. Like when things work and it's not just challenge. I mean, we obviously are going to have challenges, but there's nothing like things just working smoothly to, I think that's happiness as well, but I guess people have different definitions. So how can one get idea of how to be happy by plugging in your philosophy?
Well, a lot of what stands in our way are the beliefs that we have or the sort of habitual ways of thinking about things.
Mm.
So, complaining, for example, is a habit.
Mm.
I relocated here to Germany, and Germans tend to have this cultural habit of complaining a lot, even though they have a very high standard of living.
It's not just
And so,
Germans, it's every culture. I
no,
think
I
it's
know,
funny you say
I
that
know.
because I lived in Paris and I feel like the French complain all the time. I think it's just well, maybe not every single country, but I do know what you're talking about. I've been to Germany. I know Germans. Yeah, it's like everything's a problem, even when it's not, right?
Yeah, they complain from a very high level of quality of life, and maybe it's just the contrast me coming from Canada and living over
Mm.
here, where in Canada is kind of frowned upon to complain, and
Mhm.
so that for me was is a big contrast. I agree. Everybody finds ways to complain. We all have that inner narrator that
Mm.
judges and complains about things, and so that habit of complaining is part of it. It's the way you're looking at the life you have.
Mhm.
You see people who are very wealthy and really have everything going for them, but
Mhm.
they just see the negative,
Mhm.
and that is part of the problem.
Mm.
The other part of the issue around happiness is we keep making choices that lead us to things that don't make us happy. We engage in
Mhm.
the relationships that
Mhm.
undermine our happiness. We
Mhm.
do the type of work that doesn't fulfill us and makes us unhappy. We do things that are in contrast to our values.
Mm.
And so, a lot of times, the way we behave it comes from these strategies that we've developed over time that are based on some kind of belief from our past that doesn't serve us, it doesn't support
Mm.
us.
Mm.
So I really, when I coach people, we pick that apart. We take a particular area that they're unhappy with, and we try and look at what beliefs surround that, and
Mhm.
then look at what beliefs then translate into particular strategies in life.
Mm.
And when you can really recognize where, I have this way of dealing with if you have this attitude where it's a dog eat dog world, and
Mhm.
or things never work out for me, that's gonna, you're gonna see all the problems and all the things that are going wrong rather
Mhm.
than the opportunities for
Mhm.
change. And
Mm.
so yeah, I think your beliefs. You always talk about how we see the world through the filter of our beliefs, and
Mhm.
that's why when we can identify those things that are undermining our happiness in terms of beliefs,
Mhm.
that's another huge step.
Right, because I've thought a lot about this because I have definitely done certain things that are outward and I have become happier, like move to where I want to live. And people are like, oh, it doesn't matter where you live, you should be happy. Well, I wasn't unhappy where I was living. I just didn't like living there. And it wasn't adding to my happiness. I was fine. But then when I moved to Florida, sun and there's also the mood thing and I'm on a bay and I am definitely happier. Okay. So there's a real thing about your environment that's real. However, I feel like what I've come to, and it feels like you're somewhere in there, is like we can find happiness in anything, in any moment. We can find the happiness. Sort of like, the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu had this like podcast together. Did you hear about that?
I
And
did, yeah.
yeah, and Desmond Tutu was saying is he still alive? I'm not even sure, but he had stage 4 cancer. He was living in pure joy. Now, that's
Yeah.
pretty hard to do because most people, so that's extreme. But it's also reminding me of that movie called Life is Beautiful about, you know, it was Roberto Benigni, I think, made that, and it won an Oscar, or many,
Yeah.
about and it was really far fetched, but I get what he was going for. We all got it. That even in a concentration camp, he was showing, he was making out this fantasy world, and we're happy anyway. And it was so far fetched, but I think people really resonated because of the message of extreme way of being miserable, but he found a way to be happy for his family. That was the message I believed from that film. What do you think?
Yeah. I agree with you, and I think basically, if you have a lot of power within you to make yourself happy.
Mm.
And so, and you see this same situation with Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search
Yes.
for Meaning.
Yes.
And he talks about how there's this moment where, miserable conditions and this beam of sunlight warms his face, and he
Mm-hmm.
takes that moment to appreciate it and
Mm.
finds this tiny bit of joy in an otherwise horrific conditions. And
Mm-hmm.
so like that was really inspiring, because if he can do it, come on,
Anyone
I
can
have
do it.
no excuses.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think people say, "Oh, well, it's easy for me to be unhappy because you haven't had these problems." Well, I've had pretty big problems, and it was hard for me to be happy. But I would then compartmentalize. I'd say, "I can't let this ruin the next 2 years of my life, what I'm going through." So I will take that bike ride. I will enjoy the scenery on the bike ride. I will be in the moment with my children. It was hard, but I think it's about blocking out the problems just for a moment and isolating and saying, okay, they're still going to be there. But in this moment, I'm going to find pure joy or any joy or happiness. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you feel is, I'd like to hear some steps. Like, what is a step people can do? Can they do an audit on the way they think? Can they write down their thoughts and say, whoa, these are my negative thoughts. These are my positive. I do a gratitude list every day, but I also do dark journaling to get all the stuff out. And I do this thing before. So these are the things that are worrying me, get them out. But now let's be grateful. What are your actual strategies? I'd like to hear some things people can do.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned some really good things there. The gratitude list
Hmm.
and journaling are really good ways
Hmm.
to become more aware of what's going on internally. I have three areas that I look at when we look to change people's beliefs or look to recognize which beliefs are standing in our way. So I look at environment. So that
Hmm.
can be the people around you. You talked about relocating. For
Hmm.
you, getting more sun help
Hmm.
make you happy.
Hmm.
So environment's a really big one. Also, sort of how much media we're exposed to.
Mm.
I used to consume a lot more news than I do now. When I went traveling and I had no access to it, I realized, wow, that made a big difference in my
Mm.
life. So there's the environment piece is a big one. Experience is another one. So if we've had negative experiences that give us a negative outlook on life, it's time to have some new experiences. So
Mm.
something simple like you're afraid of something, afraid of speaking in public
Mm.
in front of a large group, and then you just start by speaking in front of a small group and a bigger group and so on. So having a new experience, or you've had negative experiences in relationships, find some good people to hang out with and
Mhm.
have new experiences. So you have the experience, you have the environment, and then you have your habitual way of thinking.
Mm.
And so that is one where you really start to look at, okay, what thoughts do I see come up again and
Mhm.
again? And the way I really love to work with those thought habits is I work with affirmations, but I
Mm.
do it a little bit different than other people in that I look at a specific topic that people want to tackle, and we'll come up with a statement. It's really important that it's in the present. It's framed in the positive. It's not this I don't want this, or I'm not going to do this, but it's affirming something positive, and it has to be believable to you.
Mm.
And so then when you have that statement for yourself, every time those negative thoughts come, you start repeating that statement.
Mm.
If you're alone, great, say it aloud, but
Mhm.
otherwise repeat it in your mind and you'll find, when our neural pathways have that's all the thought is. It's our neurotransmitters connecting together. And the more we think a thought, the more that connection is made in the brain. And if we can then forge a new path by repeating something that's contrary to that,
Mhm.
you'll find those negative thoughts on that subject will start to fade away
Mm.
over time. Every time they come up again, you have your statement, and you do that again and again. And I'll do this with people, and we'll take multiple different topics, and
Mm.
we'll use those affirmations to completely change the way of thinking. I talk
Mm.
about it like when you're walking through the forest, there's a path that's been created. If you want to go in a new direction, you walk a new path, and eventually that path will clear and the old path will grow over. And that's the
Mm.
same way I look at it within your mind,
Mm.
and the sort of connections that you make in the network in your brain. So I think that's a really powerful tool. And I think when we look at those three areas of life and we make adjustments accordingly, that in itself will give you a new perspective, but it'll also help you to make different choices in your life. You'll start to recognize, I see these choices that I continue to make, whether it's in relationships or regarded with money or in their job or in the hobbies they pursue. They'll realize the things that fulfill them and make them happy, or the things that don't, and then they'll be able to make new choices. And before you, what you were talking about, I thought was really important, because I think it points to the fact that look at the things we have the power to change.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're swimming upstream and we're fighting against things that we cannot change. So when you recognize what's in your power to change, that's where you start. Right?
Okay, so I love all that. First of all, they've done studies, and news actually is designed to get us into a danger zone in our brain. Danger. So that is not a fun thing to do. And they figured out, well, I don't watch the news at all. Like, I'll hear here and there, what's going on, and maybe I'll read a little bit, but I don't do that. And apparently, if you hear negative news in the morning, you have a 27% chance of having an unhappier day. So all those people that get their news in the morning, you're actually actively cutting down your chance of happiness that day by a percentage. They've studied this. So that's the first thing. Get rid of the news. I'm serious. I agree with you. Okay, the second thing you mentioned was that how we see stuff. Like, I have a colleague who's a loneliness coach, and she said, people just accept, oh, I have nobody around me, I'm lonely. She said, actually, that's just the way they think. Because you could be solitary, i.e., alone, or not with, because of the word alone, or alone, but you won't be lonely. And there's some people that are not lonely, even though they live alone, because they don't tell themselves, oh, poor me, I have no blah, blah, blah. And it's really, she said, it's just about shifting that martyrdom thing of, oh, I'm so lonely and da, da, da. And she said, there's no reason. I agree with her. I said, you're right. She said, when you get to this point, like you are, you're rethinking and creating new synapses of how you view things, the cup half full or half empty. So a lot of this has been talked about a lot, but people need the practical thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of good stuff there. And people knock affirmations, but it sounds like you're using the affirmations to keep replacing as a habit.
It's creating a new habit.
Yeah.
And I agree. Sometimes people would think affirmation is just this thing you repeat every day in the
Mm,
morning in the mirror. I really go specifically after the thinking habits that we have,
mm,
address them, replace them with a new habit, and
mm.
it changes your outlook,
Right.
and it changes your habit of thinking. And the other thing about loneliness, people can feel lonely in a crowd of people, right? If they
Exactly.
don't feel that sense of connection.
Mm,
So I 100% agree with you. It's the attitude, the way you look at the situation that makes all the
mm.
difference.
And the thing is, if you say to yourself, okay, I'm lonely, well, let me think. If you look at it more rationally, I want to feel more connected. So what do I do? Let me go join a tennis club. Let me go join any club. Let me go to something. I think when you're thinking about it that way, then you're more proactive. Like, okay, I don't have to feel sad and lonely, but I do feel a little disconnected. So what do I do about it rather than wallow? I think I think looking at it rationally like that does push people to action. That's just my point of view. I know I've done that in times in my life where I felt like, wait a minute, I need a tribe. What do I do? Oh, when I was in Paris, I thought I don't feel. Oh, I'm going to go join a choir because I love singing. I joined the choir, sorted it out. I had great friends. We all had that in common. It was amazing. So I figured out. I had a dream about that I was not belonging to any tribe in my dream. And I thought, oh, I need a group. So I joined the choir. My subconscious was need your tribe. So I did that. And I learned from that, if you're feeling that way, take some action to change it instead of feeling sorry for yourself, right?
Yeah, because a lot of times people will get so focused on the problem and they will not see the solutions.
Yes.
Whereas you saw what was in your power to change
Mm,
and you looked for a solution rather than being focused on the problem of I'm a stranger in a
mm,
strange country in a
mm.
different city where I don't know it. Like you could focus on all those
Yes.
problems, or you could go, okay, what's the solution here? And
Right.
unfortunately, a lot of us get stuck. And the same thing when you talked about the news and stuff, it's this fear kind of state that we get in
Mm,
where we have tunnel vision and we
mhm,
just can't see
mm.
any opportunities or any solutions outside of what we're seeing in our direct field of vision. So
Absolutely. Also, they have done studies on what makes people happy. And you've probably
mm,
heard this. The number one thing is a sense of accomplishment. That's the number one thing. So when you talk about things working, that makes sense. Oh, I'm accomplishing this. It's moving along. It's working. But people derive far more happiness from achieving something than going on a vacation. because the vacation, you're having fun, but it's in the moment and it's pleasant. But personally, I've always felt uneasy going on vacation if I haven't accomplished what I needed to do before going on the vacation. I just feel uneasy, like, "Ah, I really wanted to get that done." Then when you have accomplished, it's like, phew, I did that. Now I'm really enjoying my vacation. That's just me, and maybe it's a personality thing. Is that you as well?
I do feel great when everyone feels a sense of satisfaction when they achieve something.
Mm,
I think that what I would add to that is it doesn't have to be this huge thing. There can
no.
be daily things that you can do
Hmm.
that can be an accomplishment, whether you set out to have your workout in the morning or go
Hmm.
for your run or, do something good for someone else.
Hmm.
All of those things contribute to our sense of happiness and well-being.
Hmm.
So don't look for just those big things,
Mm,
add something to your daily life that contributes to that sense of accomplishment or that feeling of worthiness that you give yourself.
I totally agree, and I was going to get to that because it's true. You accomplish anything. You accomplish the bike ride you were going to go on. You feel happier when you get back. So I agree. It's not just huge projects because then we're waiting to feel happy to accomplish the huge project. But you could say, I achieved, this little part of the huge project, or I did a quarter of it, or what I need to do to move it along. But what you said was when you're moving it along, that makes you happy. I agree because you're achieving parts of that, the milestones. And it's true, when I go work out, I feel like I've achieved something. When I actually get on the bike or when I do any or my business, if I work well with a client, that's a sense of achievement. It's not always money coming in. It's usually when I've had like a really good coaching session with somebody, I feel amazing because I've achieved a great coaching session. So I agree with you. I think that's it, is to find the small things of achievement to make us happy or to find happiness.
Yeah, because I think sometimes we look at this end result we want to achieve, and it can feel overwhelming at
Mm,
times. And so then it's really hard to recognize those small wins that you get. I mean, I have a background where, I had built a business in Canada with my brother, and I still wasn't happy
mhm.
because I was really depressed. There was just some
Aw.
things I was overlooking, I wasn't happy with. And so from that state, it's really hard to see anything good.
Mm,
But then every time I made small steps to improving my state, my situation,
mhm,
I felt better. And so that's why small steps are so pivotal in
mhm,
creating change. If all you're looking for is that kind of end result and that big high once you've achieved
mm.
something, those are few and far between. You need to celebrate the small wins, right?
Right, but then you're focused on the dope hit. You're focused on that hormone, which is not good. So what did you we were gonna get around to that, but what
Sorry.
did no, I didn't ask you yet, so I'm glad you started bringing that up. What did get you into this whole happiness thing? Why? What was your journey towards this?
Well, I've been on this personal development journey for years,
Mm,
and so it was there were multiple steps along the way. I first of all I had to get my own mental health in order, but along the way I learned so much.
mm,
I learned a ton about what makes me happy, and I may not have even referred to it as happiness at the time, but then I kept coming back to this thing because I started to realize happy people when I was happier I made better choices.
mm,
I was better to other people. I was less selfish.
mm,
I was more successful, and so when I realized this was something that was common to a lot of people, I realized these people that had a when I traveled through Asia and I saw people who were really happy despite not having all the trappings of Western
mm,
civilization. I thought, oh, there must be something there. And then those people who were happy, I realized they were better neighbors, they're better
mm,
partners, and I see this with all the really positive people that I meet who've found ways to be happy regardless of their life
mm,
circumstances. They, in my view, are better people and contribute more. And so that's why I think happiness is such an important topic. And I also think that if I was able to come out of such a dark place and get to where I am now, then anybody can do it.
right.
So I think, and the way I brought it around to coaching, because at the time I didn't really know what coaching was,
Mm,
but then when I started to in business, shifted to doing sales training
mm,
and coaching other leaders and so on, I realized actually, I can integrate the happiness piece into that because whether you're in business or whether it's in your personal life, if you're happy in what you're doing and you have a positive outlook,
Mm-hmm.
you will be a better leader. You'll
Mm-hmm.
be a better in your organization. You'll have way more to contribute. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's such an important topic for me. And look, it's taken me a long time to get here, but I've been coaching now for over a decade now,
Mm-hmm.
and I get the same as you. There's not a that I can't remember one coaching session where I didn't come out of it feeling really great. And that's that feedback I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This is the work that makes me happy, and so that's it just tells me that I'm on the right track.
And I think it's a great thing you're doing. Who wouldn't want to coach people to be happy? It's a happy thing. It's better than coaching people on stuff that's potentially not happy, like, lots of things. Well, that's wonderful. So tell me, what's one thing that one philosophy, one mindset, one thought that's like the major thing that you want to share with people before leaving?
I think the thing I'd like to remind people is that you don't believe everything that you think about.
Mm,
We have thousands and thousands of thoughts. Researchers would say anywhere from 50, 60 to 100,000 thoughts a day. And a lot of them are the same repetitive negative thoughts. And we believe them. We believe in these things that undermine our confidence or undermine our potential and our belief that we can succeed. So just remember to reflect and know that not everything that you think about is the truth. Learn to question it and learn to get over that and gain new thinking habits and ways of seeing the world.
awesome. Okay, everybody, Rethinking Happiness is available on Amazon, I believe.
It is.
It is, okay. And if people want to seek you out, what's your website? Just we can say it verbally for people that aren't reading the show notes.
Absolutely. It's my website is peterteuscher.com. The last name is spelled Teuscher. And I write a weekly blog. So if people are interested in my line of thinking, I write about a variety of different topics, not just happiness, but in general, all things that contribute to your happiness. And you can get links to how to find the book if you'd like, or how to get in touch with me if you have more questions.
Great. Okay, Peter, thank you so much for turning up. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Please subscribe, please share, and we'll see you on the next episode. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jean Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jean Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.